The drill sergeant. Gruff and tough military men that couldn't care less about you and your feelings. At least, that's what the trope usually says about them. Are common, albeit usually quite predictable characters in game and movie media. Usually portrayed as the antagonist to our militarily inclined protagonists in media, they are a lot of the time never really fleshed out in a way that can fully humanize them. Of course, there are certain pieces of media that portray these usually outwardly hostile characters as deep and caring, that are doing it for your own good. And while these kinds of characters are normally a temporary obstacle in the grand scheme of stories, in Armored Core 6, our gruff and tough military man, Gun 1 Michigan, is far more than meets the eye on first playthrough. I've said in my other videos that Michigan is my favorite Armored Core 6 character, and a lot of people's knee-jerk reactions is to ask, why? In a game with Air, Walter, Carla, and of course everyone's favorite darling, Rusty, why do you like Michigan the most? Give me a few minutes, and I'll tell you why Gun 1 Michigan, hell on 4 legs, and the muscle of the Balam Corporation is worthy of your praise. Michigan is one of our rough but seemingly fair commanders of a military unit in Armored Core 6, and is a foil to V2 Snail of Arquebus, who views his subordinates' lives as forfeit for the cause. Commander of the Balam's combat unit, the Red Guns, Michigan got his origins actually fighting for the other side as the commander of the Furlong Dynamics Furlong Fleet, and was labeled as the hero of the Jupiter War, a conflict that predated the war on Rubicon 3. Not only was his performance in the Jupiter War so extraordinary that he was given a specific title, but the next generation of AC pilots were inspired to join wherever he was so that they could serve under Michigan's command. This is of course the story of Gun 6 Red, one of Balam's liaisons for mercenary contracts in Armored Core 6. After being recruited by Balam Industries, Michigan took out a bounty on his own head on condition that if he is killed, that half of the money is sent to his previous fleet members of the Furlong Fleet. Michigan has shown on multiple occasions that he actually deeply cares for all of the pilots in the Red Guns, even the MT pilots and maintenance personnel. We first encounter Michigan in his full potential in the mission Attack the Dam Complex, where we are tasked with taking out Rubicon Liberation Front resources, but we get our first little bits of dialogue from Gun 1 himself.
Heard the good news from Walter, did ya? Good. Sit your ass down and listen. Balam's moving in on the Gallia Dam Complex, one of the Liberation Front's bases. The objective is to destroy their lifeline and make those sacks of shit beg for mercy. I'll be sending 2 good-for-nothing maggots from the Red Guns, Gun 4 Volta and Gun 5 Iguazu. You're just gonna be tagging along on ass-wiping duty. I'm assigning you the call sign Gun 13, a lucky little number that just became available. Gun 13, sound off! Good enough. Now go get ready! We're going on a field trip, kiddo!
Right away, we get the feeling that Michigan is an intense man. But he does have a subtle intelligence in his statements. Instead of a lame-brained flat top, when Iguazu begins to compromise the following mission, Michigan deftly switches the conversation to another topic, as to not bring unwanted attention to the fact that Gun 5 is divulging Balam's confidential plans.
Hey, freelancer, bet no one even told you why we're here. Well, us real Red Guns are gonna go climb the wall. This is just target practice. When we're done, the locals' little base is next.
Gun 5, can't tear yourself away from chatting with a tag-along? Why don't you start a sewing club together and stitch that damn mouth of yours shut?
Michigan, again, later on in the same mission, is quite good at curating the egos of the pilots, reminding both of them that the enemy AC is still a threat and that the mission needs to be focused on.
Hot dog, they got an AC.
More like an old piece of junk. It's barely different from an MT. Gun 4, you're not exactly cutting edge either. You want to be next on the scrap heap?
This is a trait that is common to Michigan and extends beyond just his AC pilots. This care and redirection is also in full display on the mission Pursue the Red Guns in Chapter 4 of the story mode. He is seen repeatedly warning and admonishing his fellow Red Gun MT pilots for underestimating the power of 621. This tone, though, isn't hostile. It seems to come from a place of pure concern for his squad mates. Pay attention or die. This concern is also very readily apparent in how he explicitly warns those under his command of the impending dangers.
The only clown around here is you, Kennebec. You're talking about the wall climber, the worm killer, the only Gun 13 who's managed to live this long. Until the Liger Tail deploys, the odds are not in your favor. You better keep the emergency eject primed.
There's no boisterous bravado about killing yourself for a greater cause, or throwing yourself and wasting your life to bar 621's path. He explicitly tells his pilots to keep their ejectors primed and to withdraw if they don't think they can hack it. Of course, his bombastic gung-ho personality does come out to slightly mock those who do end up taking him up on his retreat offer, but he doesn't outwardly chastise anyone as a coward or as any less of a red gun. He merely states that they need more training and that they will return later on.
Listen up, maggots. This field trip is now a hunting expedition. You can go home now, or follow me if you got a death wish. Those of you who withdrew, keep your lousy asses low. You're gonna need more training. Put that in your diaries.
This sort of approach to his command style is very clearly reflected by how his subordinates respect him. Battle cries and words of encouragement ring through the comms as his loyal soldiers follow him into the fray.
Oh, come on, sir. You gonna ride out to steal all the credit?
You got plenty of medals already, sir. We want some of the glory, too.
Go, go, go! Follow Michigan!
Give the Liger Tail some cover!
You don't hear that from any of the Vespers. To further drive home this point, Michigan is acutely aware of every member who speaks to him over the comms and addresses them by name. Soldiers, AC pilots, and even the maintenance crew are addressed by their names. He is aware of every single person in his unit. And just to reinforce this, Michigan is the commanding officer of the entire Red Guns division, not just the ACs under his command. It's very easy to assume that every single one of those 50 MTs in his last mission that 621 destroys was a pilot Michigan was acutely aware of and knew every single one of their names. It's also worth mentioning that even when Michigan is defeated, instead of the Red Guns breaking and retreating, they double down as to not waste his effort. He must have given as much as he got. We can still win this.
You gotta be kidding me. Not Michigan!
He must have given as good as he got. We can still win this!
I think this line itself is the one that really solidified that Michigan wasn't an awful person. If he really was as awful as someone like V2 Snail, his men would have broken and scattered, or maybe even surrendered the moment Michigan was defeated. But to actually continue fighting and jumping into the fray, risking your lives knowing that the strongest of you have already fallen, that takes a certain amount of respect and admiration to do. Of course, not all of his subordinates liked him. I'm sure that there were plenty that we never heard of that either couldn't hack it or were just not significant enough to be mentioned. And it is of course difficult to talk about Michigan without talking about Gun 5 Iguazu and Gun 4 Volta. On a second playthrough, you can actually choose to betray the Red Guns and assist the Rubicon Liberation Front in the first Assault the Dam mission. If you choose to do so, Iguazu has 2 lines that he says that perfectly encapsulated how he feels about his commanding officer.
Watch it, Freelancer. I'm not going down like Volta. I'm gonna punch the living daylights out of Michigan, and no one's stopping me. I'm not taking any more of your shit. I already get enough from Michigan every day of the week.
It is stated in his All Mine arena entry that Iguazu picked a fight with the hero of Jupiter, who retaliated so badly that he never quite looked the same afterward. Also, side note, absolute mad lads of the translation team to use the word recalcitrant in his profile. Getting back on track, this hero of Jupiter is of course Gun 1, who maybe saw Iguazu as a piece of the machine that needed a forceful hand to change, and applied his corrections as so. It is stated that Volta also received these beatings, and Iguazu bonded with Volta over their shared disdain of their commanding officer, enough so to actually have similar emblems to signify their brotherly bond. Noticeably, in this mission, however, Volta never actually says any lines about Michigan and himself. It is shown that after Volta is killed, however, that Volta may have actually seen what all the other Red Guns had also saw about Michigan. That he actually cared. His final moments were spent praising Gun 1 and pleading with Iguazu to reconsider Iguazu's position about his commanding officer.
Iguazu, I'm telling you, man, you gotta give Michigan a chance. He's different from the suits at HQ. Look, I know he's an asshole, but he's looking out for us, you know? Almost like we got a family here. Man, if there's anyone who deserves punching out, it's the freaks who sent us on this suicide mission. You picked a good day to go AWOL. Wish I.
To use your final moments to stand for a man you once hated enough to form a brotherhood with another pilot for the sole purpose of kicking his ass? Michigan must have shown his true colors around Volta for him to see him this way. When Michigan finally succumbs to 621 in his final mission, Michigan's final lines, I believe, shows two separate goals. And this may be a bit of a stretch, but it wouldn't be a Ravens Cortex video if I didn't put a little bit of my personal spin on it. Let's give it a quick listen.
Maggots, do you read me? You can tell this to posterity. Mean old Michigan died of a bad fall.
I think this statement runs double duty. First, and most importantly, mean old Michigan died of a bad fall implies that he doesn't want 621 to get credit for his kill, and that the full bounty reward would therefore go to his former allies at the Furlong Fleet. It makes sense that the commander who cares so much for his troops of the current era still harbors a great deal of respect for his squad mates of literal wars past. Second, and this one might be reaching a bit, but the implication that Michigan died of a bad fall would mean that he truly believes that his Red Gun maggots can actually defeat 621 to report that Michigan was not defeated by any AC pilot. It only makes sense that the troops that held their commander in such high regard to give it as good as he got it would in turn believe that his soldiers would give just as much hell as they take. And that's the story of Gun 1 Michigan, my favorite of the AC pilots in Armored Core 6. He really is a very deep character if you take just a little bit of time to look at the clues that the game gives you. I wouldn't blame you for missing or even being tired of the military man trope in video games, but Michigan is a great subversion of that stereotype. I hope if you didn't like him before, you maybe like him a little bit more now. He deserves it. Most of the Red Guns do. Are you looking for another story of a corporation and AC pilot that is a bit more than meets the eye? Check out my video on the Raven's Nest conspiracy, especially if you're new to the franchise because of Armored Core 6. This kind of writing goes all the way back to Generation 1. And as always, Ravens, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.